Good morning. This is Dina Marie, host of Faith Moments and the Voice of the Shepherd with a Franciscan moment on Mater Dei Radio. During our Lenten journey, a traditional devotion is praying the Stations of the Cross, particularly on the Fridays of Lent. What is the mystery behind the cross, and what lessons can we learn from the lives of the saints? With me today to help us reflect upon the mystery of the cross is Father Dan Pattee, a Franciscan friar. We've been joining him every month. Father Dan, welcome back to Mater Dei Radio during this Lenten season. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. It's nice and warm and clement weather here in the Fort Worth area this morning.
Well, we're a little envious of that here in the Pacific Northwest. It's still a little cold here during our Lenten journey, but it helps us with our penitential process.
Yes, there you go. That's it. Yeah, you're doing more penance than we are.
That's right. That's right. Well, we talked about last time you and I talked, we talked about fasting and prayer, a little bit of the example that we have received from the life of St. Francis. But let's talk about the cross. We certainly reflect upon the cross. We have the veneration of the cross on Good Friday, Stations of the Cross. The cross is the cornerstone to our faith. Give us a sense of just the Franciscan community's way in which you approach the cross, look at the cross. How is it part of your spirituality?
Well, it enters right into the heart of our spirituality, and especially the charism of my own spirituality as a third order regular Franciscan of conversion, because the cross is what spoke to Francis at a very pivotal moment in his own conversion. The San Damiano crucifix said to Francis as he sat and prayed and was kneeling before it in the church of San Damiano, "Go rebuild my church, which, as you see, is falling into ruins." And that was from the cross. And Francis set out, of course, with brick and mortar initially, but then came later to understand that Christ had fallen asleep in the hearts of the faithful, and that one of the great things that Francis did was to revive Christ in the hearts of the faithful. And that all started with the voice of Jesus from the cross, who is our salvation. And so the cross enters very centrally into the Franciscan spirituality at that point.
Mm-hmm. If we take a look at St. Francis and just his life in meditating, contemplating the mystery of the cross, where does that take him in terms of how he's going to live his life and be an example to others?
Well, it took him eventually to Mount Laverna, where the cross and the nails and the imprint of the nails in his flesh manifest themselves. So he so internalized the love of Christ crucified in his interior life that it eventually came and manifested itself in his body by way of these wounds in his flesh. Toward the end of his life, the last 2 years of his life, he actually did have the stigmata. And that was due to his love of Christ crucified. And the thing about Christ crucified, we might be so taken aback, of course, by the brutality of what Christ suffered. But what we find there at the same time is a tremendous confidence in the Father's love for him, even as he's suffering tremendous evil and injustice. Christ persists in his confidence in the Father, whereas when we start to experience evil or injustice or even perceive evil, we can start to lose hope, and we can start to lose confidence. Is God even there? We'll see Christ maintain that confidence even through all that injustice, and see that's what Francis was able to tap into in Christ, and all the saints do. They continue to have this great confidence in God's love for themselves, for the world, even in the face of the evils and the injustices that they see and encounter as they continue to live the life of Christ.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking with Father Dan Pattee, Franciscan Friar, as we reflect in this Lenten season, the mystery of the cross. And certainly we have the tradition of Fridays, the Stations of the Cross, really every Friday. It's important to reflect upon the cross, the mysteries of the Rosary. We have the sorrowful mysteries where we really reflect upon the cross. Maybe take us into our Lenten journey, Father Dan, as maybe ways in which we can really embrace the cross, reflect upon the cross, as St. Francis did.
Yeah, it's of course, Francis, as we've already discussed earlier this year, we talked about his experience at Gubbio, where he had the crest scene. And that was Francis's spirituality, was to express externally. Well, what happened was during the time of Francis, of course, the Muslims occupied the Holy Lands, which made pilgrimage to the holy sites near impossible. It was too dangerous. So what started to develop in Franciscan churches in Europe was they externalized the sites of the Holy Land in their churches by depicting the various sites of Jesus' passion. And that's how the Stations of the Cross developed. And pilgrimages, instead of going to the Holy Land, would go to these station churches and make the way of the cross within them. And as that developed, of course, eventually the practice of the Stations of the Cross in all the churches of Europe was proliferated by the Holy Father, and it became a real devotion by which the faithful can enter more deeply into the Passion of Christ by going through the Stations of the Cross, especially during the Lenten season on Friday.
Right, right. Give us a sense, Father Dan. I know you serve at a parish that also has a school, and just the community, the parish community, the school children, just the ways in which you're seeing them live out this Lenten journey.
Well, of course, every Friday we have the Stations of the Cross at our parish at St. Andrews here in Fort Worth. We have the Stations of the Cross on Friday at 7 p.m. And at 5:30, just before that, the Knights of Columbus put on the fish fry, of course, and it's really quite delightful. And then we also have the grade school kids, the 7th and 8th graders, every year. They put on a passion play. They put on and depict the actual Passion of Christ in theater, which comes before the whole community, and it's according to the gospel of that year. So this year it'll probably be, I believe it's Matthew, and they'll actually depict that in drama for us, and they're starting to get ready for that right now.
Yeah. I think that's just a powerful opportunity for a young person to not only read the gospel, but now I'm going to take time to kind of live this out. I mean, this is a live Lectio Divina, so to speak, is living out the gospel, and how that could be very transformative for these young people and for their parents in the parish to watch this reenaction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the children really get into it. They really do. And they try to play their part, and they're very earnest about it. And it is a great way to help them understand and appreciate what Jesus went through for us, and take in the gospel and the good news.
Right, right. Let's talk a little bit, Father Dan, about that San Damiano cross. You talked about the cross speaking to St. Francis, and we've talked about it before. I know the sisters at Our Lady of Peace have a big, big image of that beautiful cross, has a icon look to it. Lots of different people are symbolized on that cross. Can you give us a little sense of this cross?
Yeah, I was privileged really, and I have a big image of the cross in my bedroom as well. But I prayed before that cross all my years at Franciscan, because it was in the chapel of the friars for the 29 years I was there. And so I really learned a lot about that cross, and it's a Johannine cross. It's a depiction. The the artist obviously took his inspiration from the Gospel of John, because you have the players there, the beloved disciples there, Mary Magdalene, Mary the wife of Clopas, Joseph of Arimathea. They're all there in John's Gospel, and that's what you have in the San Damiano crucifix. The other thing you have, if you look at the corpus of the San Damiano crucifix, is Jesus' stance is that of glory. He's in glory. He's crucified, but he's also in glory. And that's, of course, John's understanding of the cross is the cross, Jesus is being lifted up, and it's his first step to glorification in the Father. And so the cross is the first step in a ladder leading him back to the Father, and in this Passover. And so you get that as well in this cross. And so Jesus' hands, for example, are up in a praise gesture of the Father. And the Father's hand appears at the very top of the cross, blessing his Son. And you can see this hand at the very top of the cross. So there's a lot of symbolism that way of Christ in victory in this cross, and just tremendous theology for faith. I think it's for faith, because I think it's easy enough for us to become trapped in the brutality of the cross, which was very real. But we also need to realize by our faith, this is the Son of the living God who is defeating death on the cross. In that brutality, he's defeating all of that brutality to make a new way possible for us. And that's the thing our faith needs to feed on as well. And this cross tries to bring that out a lot, just as St. John's Gospel does as well.
Right. I'm talking with Father Dan Pattee, Franciscan Friar, on our Lenten journey, reflecting upon the cross. Father Dan, I want to talk with you a little bit more. I've got some more questions for you, but we are coming up to a break. Hold on the line and we'll continue our conversation in the next half hour.
Okay, thank you.